Wisdom is sweet to your soul, like honey to your tongue. She slices the fruit in silence. The skin is thin, the flesh golden. Her hands are slower than before, but precise. A choreography of age, grace, and memory. It's not just a mango. It's the taste of a summer long gone. Her husband still calls it her secret weapon. And maybe it is. Because every morning, while the world rushes, she sits and peels her power. Not pills, not powders, fruits. 5 of them. Each chosen not by trend, but by time. Papaya. Her doctor said it's good for digestion, but she likes it because it reminds her of the garden they built in their first home. Blueberries. The grandkids call them brain fuel. She just calls them little memories. Figs, soft, sweet, forgotten by many, but not by her. Queen fruit, she whispers, for the bones, for the blood. Pomegranate, red, stubborn, splitting one open feels like an ancient rite. The juice stains her hands. She doesn't mind. That's how she knows it's working. And guava, the fruit no one brings up. Rich in vitamin C, rough around the edges, like her. Each one a small miracle. Not because they heal everything, but because they remind her she's still here, still choosing, still growing. She doesn't eat them to live longer. She eats them to live fuller. And if you ask her the secret, she won't mention diets or regimens. She'll say, pick things that remember you back. What can 5 fruits do? More than you think. They don't just nourish. They anchor. They whisper that life, even now, is still ripening. If this spoke to you, subscribe. For your body, your heart, your future. Share it with someone who still believes small things can change everything. Because the mango she slices, she planted that tree the day after her husband died, and this morning, for the first time, it bore fruit. People don't stop dreaming because they grow old. They grow old because they stop dreaming. He walked slowly into the clinic. Not because he was in pain, but because he remembered a time when walking had been effortless, automatic. Now, each step asked a question. How much longer? The doctor smiled, took the blood pressure, checked the reflexes, listened to the heart. Then came the unexpected. Would you like to know how long you might live? He laughed nervously. Don't we all? But the doctor wasn't joking. He pulled up a tablet, scrolled, showed a study that analyzed over 30,000 seniors. And the results were not based on age alone. They were based on something simpler, something no one talks about. Grip strength, walking speed, social connection, mental engagement, resting heart rate, small things, daily things, things most ignore until it's too late. The patients who passed these 5 markers, even in their 70s and 80s, didn't just live longer. They lived better. They laughed more, recovered faster, needed less medication, felt less alone. Because longevity isn't magic. It's not genetics alone. It's rhythm, consistency, tiny signs that your body still wants to dance. And that man? He didn't wait for the test. He went home and built his own. He gripped the broom tighter, timed his walks, called his brother, played chess again. Because sometimes, knowing is enough to start living again. We wait for miracles, but the body whispers long before it screams. The lesson? Your longevity doesn't start with age. It starts with awareness. If you're over 70, your future isn't written in your birth certificate. It's written in your daily habits. Subscribe for more truths they never told you. And the ones that still matter. Share this with someone who needs to remember. It's not too late. And the real twist? When the man returned a year later, the doctor was surprised. Not because his stats had improved, but because he had a new dream to live past 100 and to dance on his birthday. And he did. The body speaks in whispers before it screams. It started with something simple, a tightness in the calf. Not pain, just pressure, brushed off as stiffness. I slept wrong, he said. Then came the breathlessness, not after a jog, but after tying his shoes. A pause, a sigh. He waited for it to pass. It didn't. A week later, during a walk with his grandson, he had to sit down. His heart wasn't racing, but something felt off, like his body had switched languages overnight. Still, he didn't call the doctor, didn't want to be dramatic, didn't want to worry his kids, didn't want to admit that something might be wrong. Until one night, he got up to go to the bathroom and noticed something. The color. Not yellow, not clear, but dark, almost brown. That was the moment he stopped pretending. At the clinic, the doctor wasn't surprised. These were the signs, the quiet ones, the ignored ones, the ones that come after 70 and are too often chalked up to just getting old. But they're not age, they're warnings. Here's what he learned. Leg cramps can mean poor circulation, or even silent blood clots. Breathlessness can hint at heart failure before it shows on any scan. Urine changes, early signs of kidney distress. Chest tightness without pain, sometimes the first sign of a heart attack. A sudden loss of appetite could be tied to more than digestion. Even early-stage cancer. Each symptom alone is a whisper. Together, they shout, but the body is generous. It gives time, it nudges, it asks us to listen. And when we don't, it starts to scream. The lesson? After 70, the greatest mistake isn't weakness. It's silence. Don't normalize what hurts. Don't ignore what changes. Because early action isn't panic. It's wisdom. Subscribe for more real signals your body tries to tell you. Share this with someone you love over 70. It could change everything. And what happened to the man? He caught the signs just in time. But that's not the twist. The twist was this. He now keeps a list by his bed, not of symptoms, but of questions. And every morning he asks them. Because when you stop ignoring yourself, you don't just survive. You age with power. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is stay silent. She sat at the table. Same spot as always. Same dishes. Same rituals. But something had changed. They came in late, didn't greet her, laughed too loud, interrupted. When she spoke, they didn't hear. Or worse, they heard, but didn't listen. Her son scrolled his phone. Her daughter-in-law corrected her story. The grandchildren whispered under their breath. One of them smirked when she forgot a name. She smiled. Not because she was fine, but because that's what she was trained to do. Be gracious, be patient, be quiet. After all, they're just kids, or he's tired from work, or it's not worth the fight. But inside, something stirred. Not anger, not pride, dignity. She had spent her life building this family, holding them together, sacrificing, softening, showing up. And now, in her own home, at her own table, she had become background noise. That night, she didn't yell, she didn't slam a door, she didn't even raise her voice. She left a note on the table. Respect isn't owed because of age, it's owed because of presence, and I won't be present where I'm invisible. The next morning they found her chair empty, her bed made, the kitchen clean. But the silence was unbearable. Because sometimes it takes absence to reveal value. Sometimes it takes one dignified exit to teach what words never could. And when they finally called, she didn't gloat. She didn't scold. She simply said, "I'll come back when you remember how to see me." They say aging is about loss, but sometimes it's about reclaiming. Not your youth, not your past, but your voice. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You just need to know when not to stay silent. Subscribe to hear more stories that honor the strength behind stillness. Share this with someone who's been talked over too many times. And if they ask where she went that morning, she took herself out, had lunch by the river, smiled at strangers, bought a book, and sat in the sun, finally heard by the one who mattered most, herself.